Okay, so to continue on from the previous lesson, you've seen that how the automatic weight system works in Blender, where it can start to give you realistic human figure movements. So what we're going to do now is take a look at this concept of bone envelopes. How do bone envelopes work and why we are not going to be using them to rig our character. Now the thing to understand about bone envelopes is that they are only internal to Blender. They cannot be used outside of Blender, meaning with game engines, because game engines require that you use vertex groups and assign the vertices to these vertex groups, so wherever the bone goes, the vertices will follow. Now, to understand how to work with bone envelopes, all we really have to do is apply the armature deform. So first go ahead and click on the figure, make sure that it's in object mode, and now drop it onto the armature. Now over here, we're only going to select armature deform first. Go ahead and move this up. Now over here, you can see that the armature modifier is going to be using vertex groups. So here we're going to tell it where we just want to use bone envelopes and uncheck this. Okay, that's the first step. Now go ahead and click on the armature and go to the data tab over here. So as I said, you can choose to display how the bones look inside the 3D view. So you already know how the octahedral mode is, right? It simply allows you to see where the tail and the head is. That's its purpose. And when you click on a stick, you can actually see that bones are simply two vertices and an edge. And wire, it's the same thing, right? And the reason these two displays are here is because this is going to get in your way when you are actually posing your character. So you can choose these two options to actually see how to pose the character a little more clearly, and that's what wire is here for too. Okay, now notice that when we click on wire in pose mode, it's just a line, but when you switch to edit mode on the armature, it's going to show you the vertices as ball shapes over here, and stick mode is just going to show you these two dots. Okay, now when we click on envelopes in edit mode, you're going to see these really weird shapes appear over here. Okay, now the reason this is happening is because you actually have to set up the bone envelopes for every single bone, so they're a lot more difficult to work with when you are dealing with organic models, meaning that I personally do not use bone envelopes because they're only internal to Blender, but you might find some use for them if you don't want to deal with vertex groups, which are much more powerful to use. So we're going to actually first fix this. Go ahead and press A to select all the bones and go ahead and zoom out, shift middle mouse button over here. Now, if you actually go to the bone tab over here, and where we have this box checked deform, if you open this up, you can see that it's talking about bone envelopes over here. So wherever you see this white space, this is what the distance is. And the weight is basically the influence the vertices will have if they fall into this distance. And this is simply the radius of the head and the tail. Okay, so we're going to understand this. So all you want to do right now is do Alt S and actually move your mouse over here. Do Alt S, and now if you move your mouse inwards, you can see that here we're going to start to see the actual bones for our character. So all we're doing here right now, and just press the left mouse button, is we're adjusting the radius of the head and the tail. Okay, now if you do Control Alt S and do the same thing, now you're actually adjusting the distance, which is the white space. So go ahead and bring it all the way inside over here. Kind of like this, doesn't have to be perfect. Notice how the distance changed for all the bones, okay? So the way this works with bone envelopes is that it's all going to be done in real time. Where you see this white space here for this bone over here, just go ahead and right click on the body of this bone. if the vertices fall within this white space, they will start to move wherever this bone goes. Now, if you do the middle mouse button to look, you can see that no vertices are actually going to follow this bone because the white space is right now inside the figure. We're going to go to the front view. Now switch to pose mode over here and have this bone selected. Press the R key to move. You'll see that nothing's going to happen. So we have to increase the distance. Okay, so go ahead and switch to edit mode over here. Now we can increase the distance by clicking on this bone and doing it here with your mouse, or if you want to do it faster, just do Control Alt S and now increase this distance. Okay, now notice that this is very strict. This white space has to cover all the vertices. Now notice that over here, the way I did it, I didn't even capture this bottom area over here. And if you do the middle mouse button, if you do the top view, you can see that we're not even capturing these vertices over here. We're going to go to the front view. Now if you switch to pose mode over here and press the R key, you'll see that it's starting to capture these vertices. Do you see how difficult it is to set this up on organic models? Right click to cancel. So if we want to set this up bone by bone, we would have to click on edit mode. Now this is hard to do, but go ahead and click on the head of this bone and now do Alt S to increase the radius of just the head. Now here I'm just moving the mouse and you'll see that it'll just allow you, and left click this. Now zoom in over here and try to capture that the tail of this bone. Do Alt S to just increase this a little bit over here and press the 7 key to see that, okay, now we're getting the white space to come in over here. Now we can do the same thing and click on this joint over here, do Alt S now to increase just the radius here a little bit. Do Control Alt S to increase the white space over here. So here we have to click on the body, do Control Alt S, and now increase the white space. Now notice what's happening over here. Press the 1 key. See how this bone influence is going inside this other bone influence. Okay, now if we go to pose mode and click on this bone and press the R key, you'll see that more and more of the arm is moving. But notice that the vertices below the arm where the tricep area are not being captured. Right click to cancel. If we go to the top view and try to just see what the issue is, you can see that we're actually just missing this over here, right? If we click this, see, it's not coming over here. So we have to basically go into edit mode and click over here and do Alt S to increase this a bit more and just rotate around to make sure that everybody's coming in the picture over here. And since we're already here, might as well just click on this and now do Alt S to increase the radius of this whole thing over here. I'm going to do the same thing, Alt S. Now click on the body, do Control Alt S, and now increase this over here. So when you go to the right view, you can see that it's capturing this whole area. Click on this, shift middle mouse button, Control Alt S, and now click over here, click on the neck, Control Alt S to now capture the whole neck. Let's try to capture the head, Control Alt S, and capture this. And then we'll go to your right view over here. So we definitely need to click on the jaw, Control Alt S, and get this over here. So we're going to be missing a little bit of the area over here. So we can try to capture this on the eye over here. Do Control Alt S. We would have to increase this quite a bit over here to actually even capture this area. Okay. Actually, for this one, Control Alt S, we can increase it all the way over here. Okay. So anyways, the point here is that now when you go to pose mode and click on this, again, you can actually click over here and switch back to octahedral. Now when you press the R key, you'll see that we're starting to now deform this character. Definitely this is much more difficult to work with when you're dealing with organic characters. Okay. Now the important thing to understand about using bone envelopes, as I said, is that when you click on the figure, you can see that it does not care about vertex groups at all. Okay, so Here we have the armature attached, and here we're saying use bone envelopes. That's all this means. Now go ahead and now drag this out of here to drop it. Okay, now remember, there are no vertex groups. We're back to the way we were. Okay, now if we have the armature selected, go over here and click on bone envelopes. You can see, bone envelopes. You can see that we've been starting to set up these bone envelopes on these bones over here. Okay, so now when you click on the figure over here, make sure it's in object mode. And when you drag it onto the armature, you'll see that over here, all it's really asking you is that if you set up the bone envelopes for your character correctly, it's talking about the white space. Do you want to use that white space to create the vertex groups and assign the vertices to those vertex groups based on that white space? Let's go ahead and click this. So you'll see it's just going to do the same thing, but this time it did not shoot rays out of the bones. It simply used that white space to capture these vertices. That's all that was going on over here. Okay, so now when you click on the modifiers tab and move this up, here we're going to use vertex groups. And now we can simply click on the armature, switch over here, and just switch back to octahedral. Now when you press the R key, you'll see that all it's really doing, it's using the same concept which we already did with automatic weights, but this time it's based on the bone envelopes. Okay, that's all this is. Okay, so we're here. We're just going to pose this and move this up over here and click on the figure. Don't worry about this weird deformation because we didn't do anything about that yet. Now, if you click over here on the figure and go over here and now do bone envelopes again, you can see that it's just now, right now it's just using the bone envelope. It doesn't care about your vertex group. And if you click on the vertex groups and click over here and now delete all, you'll see that nothing changes. It's because it doesn't care about vertex group. So bone envelopes are basically being done in real time. So this is something we are not going to be using when we are rigging our character. So you can look at bone envelopes, as I've said, as an older technology is because it's not used by any other systems outside Blender. It's only internal to Blender, right? All the gaming engines out there and other 3D modeling packages are simply just going to use the vertex group concept, where you assign the vertices to the vertex groups, so wherever the bone goes, the vertices will follow. Okay, so now what we're going to do is simply go ahead and reload this file over here. Okay, so now that you have seen how bone envelopes work, I'm going to show you how bendy bones work. So go ahead and click on the figure in the outliner, make sure it's in object mode, and drag it onto the armature, and then again just choose with automatic weights and go ahead and bring up the armature deform again. Now click on this bone and press the R key to confirm that everything is working. Right click to cancel the movement. Do shift middle mouse button to pan over here and just zoom in a little bit. Make sure that you can see this area over here. Okay, now click on this hand. We're going to rotate this hand on the y-axis. So press the R key, then press the Y key 2 times to rotate on the y-axis, and just start to move your mouse so the hand will start to rotate. Now left click. Now go ahead and zoom in. Notice that in order to get the proper deforms for this area over here, we also have to rotate this bone. So go ahead and click it. Now just look at your own hand and try to rotate your hand. You'll notice that this area is also going to be rotating. So this means that over here we have to press the R key, press the Y key 2 times, and do the same thing. Just rotate just a little bit over here, and then maybe we can come in on the hand, press the R key, press the Y key 2 times, and just adjust it a little bit so it looks correct. Okay, now when we create the non-deformed bones, all of this is going to be handled automatically for us. Right now you can see that we have to do this manually, okay, to get the proper deforms in joint areas like this. Okay, now go ahead and click on this bone, do Alt R to reset the rotation, click on this bone and then do Alt R. Now we're going to take a look at how Bendy Bones will handle this automatically for us. Do A to deselect everything. So go ahead and click on the data tab over here. Now click on B Bones. And now zoom out, shift middle mouse button over here. You'll notice that the B bones are basically behaving the same way as the bone envelopes were, meaning that we have to adjust how they are being displayed in the 3D view. So if you click on B bones and now switch to edit mode and then do A to select all the bones, do Control Alt S, you can actually bring down the scale, or really it's just adjusting how the bones look inside edit mode. So here we're just going to park it like this. Okay, go ahead and zoom in, shift middle mouse button. Notice that when we did Control Alt S, it's really just modifying how they look inside the 3D view. If you switch back to octahedral mode, it really is not going to modify or damage the placement of your bones inside your 3D character. Right, so go ahead and click this back on. Do shift middle mouse button over here and go ahead and right click on this bone. Now if you go to the bone tab over here, you can open up Bendy Bones and here you'll see segments. Now go ahead and increase the segments to, let's say, about 8 will do fine. And now switch to pose mode. Go ahead and zoom in, shift middle mouse button. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and click on this hand bone and now rotate it using the same technique. Press the R key, then press the Y key 2 times, and now rotate the head. Now do you see the power of Bendy Bones? It's actually figuring out this deformation area over here for you automatically. Now the thing is that you don't even have to be on B bounds. Blender knows that you set this up with segments. You can switch back to octahedral, stick, or wire. So that's the power of B bounds. Okay, now if we click back, you can see that when you click it, that's all it's doing. So if you go back to the bone tab over here, you can see that you can decrease how it deforms or you can increase it over here. Notice that we only have to do it here. We don't have to do it on the hand. Okay, so this is how you can use this bendy bone concept. If you don't want to deal, let's say here, with a much more sophisticated rigging system. Now keep this in mind that this B-bone concept is internal to a Blender. So we're not going to be using it. Okay, so that's how B-bones work. Let's go ahead and just reload the file. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.